there? Is he on his way?
All right, we are recording now. All right, pretty good. Yeah, so I got the Auburn shirt on. This one is actually one of my assistant principals. Her son plays ball for Auburn on the wheelchair basketball team up there.
Oh, cool. Well, I was doing some work earlier. Had my sweatshirt on.
There you go. There you go. His story is pretty awesome, though. Like, he was one of those kids that I always liked the kid, really good kid, been around for a long time. He played basketball and whatnot, was always messing around with me and wrestling. But he went to college, went to Wofford, which was local, and, got into an accident. I can't remember if it was his freshman or sophomore year. It might have been his freshman year, and ended up, breaking part of his back and getting paralyzed and things of that nature. Through a bunch of surgeries, different things, he's the type of kid that continue to do the things that we say, find a way to get better, find the positive, do all the right things. And I think he'll fully 100% be a motivational speaker, talking about, look, hey, I went off to college, broke my back, came back, and now I'm playing D1 ball someplace. Granted, it's a wheelchair thing. Maybe he'll go to the Special Olympics for all that kind of stuff. But he had to learn all that later on in life to do it. He said when he first started doing it, like some of these kids that grew up in a wheelchair, man, they were just leaving him in the dust. Like, he just couldn't do it and stuff now. And I ran into him before this school year started. And we went to a teacher lunch, or some teachers went to lunch. Like, some of the only days that we get to leave the building. During that first week, those days. And he, I can't remember if we were at Fuji or Japan House, same type of thing. We were at one of them, and he was like, "Oh, I'm supposed to be at the other one." And I watched him leave, and I was in complete awe that he'd gotten it so figured out. Like, he goes out to his car, and he's got his wheelchair, and he hops in his, out of the wheelchair, into the car, folds up the wheelchair, pulls it in. He's got the whole set,
Yeah.
Does it without a heartbeat of complaint. He's accepted life and has made the best of it and can do everything that he wants to do, Has he had his struggles? For sure, yeah. But I just think it's awesome, the stuff that he's doing now. And I tell him, dude, motivational speaker when you're done with college and, your ball playing career and everything that you've gone through, man, your story's amazing. So,
yeah. We got two things on that. Number one, he probably knows when I was teaching down there at Auburn, Woody Thornton is one of the older guys that's on the wheelchair basketball teams down there. So I'm sure they know each other.
Yeah.
So I can keep up with Woody. And then when I was down there, Woody's two of his sons actually wrestled at Auburn High School. So I ran into him this year down there, got to catch up with them. So that was pretty cool seeing what they're doing. But you're talking about that. We had Hassan Hawthorne when I was at Pelham up here, the double amputee state champ.
Yeah.
He went and wrestled, and he's doing that. He graduates in the fall from Hastings University, and he will. He's doing his motivation. Yeah, brother, we're old, man. Remember, we're 41. So I tell everybody
I remember the story, you telling me that he was getting recruited and he was going to go, and that was like a big deal, and that was awesome, and it seemed like a text/email that we had that conversation a year ago, not not 4.
Yeah, he's this is his 4th year. He did 3 years at Northern Idaho, University of the JUCO, and then he was going to hang it up. Went back to Hastings this year and ended up tearing his labrum in one of his hips. So, which if you're a double amputee above the knee, that's rough. So
it sounds like almost like the equivalent to ACL surgery. That's your mobility and.
Yeah, to a point, but at least with ACL, you can rehab it. With him, his hips and everything were so kind of messed up, and he'd had a lot of injuries and stuff.
So. I was just thinking about the immediate, and takes you out and everything else. So
yeah.
I can only imagine the amount of stuff that wear and tear.
They need to talk to him, get him on here one week because he's probably got an awesome story he could share.
Yeah. Shoot, I should get my man on there too. I don't know what. Again, it's one of those things we talked about before. The positives that have come out of this is figuring out and finally doing some of these types of setups and stuff like that. So
yeah.
But Well, if you haven't noticed, Tyler's not going to be joining us today. He,
Okay.
I talked with him earlier today. He's kind of getting swamped with his load of schooling and tests and papers and stuff to turn in. So, I think today was an off day as far as some of the schools. So he needed to, spend a lot of that time catching up. So he said he might hit us up later on and or he might have a reply or something to add to it, which I can always add to all the stuff later on, which is fine too.
Oh yeah, definitely, most definitely.
Yeah. But yeah, no. So I checked. Before we get into what I texted you about earlier about what I guess the original plans were to talk about for today's episode, but listen to your episode on the COVID-19.
Yeah.
For this, I guess you hadn't. You said check it out. Like you hadn't published it yet, or
Yeah, I was it's one of those, since it was kind of a rant sort of thing. I was letting you have a check and kind of get your feel on it before I sort of went public with it.
Yeah, no. I would say, I think you got some valid points. I've got some agreements and disagreements with it, but I think that's what makes, stuff like this and the fact that you and I are, about as good as buddies can be, considered family, all that kind of stuff. We can disagree on things and yet still have a discussion about it, which I think is the problem with the world today, is people automatically make the assumption that if you disagree with somebody that you don't like them, you hate them, you can't, there's no open dialogue, as you said, and I think that's a problem in today's society, period. So, but not to completely have our whole show on that today, but for those of you, when you guys go check out Tuckered Out Life, when he goes in and puts it up there, my man states some good things about, not good things like this. None of this is.
Yeah, that was the disclaimer to start with. It's not a good situation.
Yeah, none of this is a good situation, but there have been positives to come out of it. Okay?
Yes.
Now, but he had some good information in the fact that, like, mentioning things and, like, looking up things and educating yourself and, not just always being on one side of things, but always educating yourself on both sides of things so that you're a well-rounded individual is good for any argument, any debate, any sort of type of thing. So I 100% agree with those statements. I think that I agreed with a lot of what you said about, small businesses and their livelihoods and certain things needing to be open again.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't agree with it wholeheartedly as a blanket statement, which I don't think you necessarily meant it as a blanket statement. I think you were just speaking in general terms because that was the general term, the president talking about reopening the country.
Exactly, yeah.
And that's as a general statement. And that's what makes this kind of hard too, is making general statements. And as you pointed out, every region and area is different. So I disagree with opening of the country right now as a general thing, as a blanket fits for all.
Right, yeah.
Every state is at a different stage of things. And I'm going to use we're a state away. I'm in South Carolina, I think you guys are further ahead than we are on it. You guys always, when just from our talks, you guys closed this sooner, you did that sooner, you made this announcement sooner. So you guys seem to be one step ahead of us. And I don't know.
Well, once again, it's perspective. We could be one step ahead. We could be one step behind. So
that's also very true. Very true. I feel, and I'm keeping it more of a regional, local type thing as far as my opinion on the opening and closing of things. I feel personally right now, like I said, I'm in South Carolina. I don't think our state has done a good job of doing the social distancing, of doing the quarantining, of doing the shutdown process.
Yeah.
Therefore, our numbers are still going up. We have not reached our peak yet. We have not even got to the point where it says reach your peak 2 weeks and then we can begin opening things up and, that kind of thing. I don't think we've done a good job with that. And for us to say, go ahead and reopen for us, I think is just reopening while it's still spreading or still on its upward swing. And now you're not getting a secondary spike. You're making the first spike larger, therefore prolonging a potential problem, not program.
And I don't think, and here in Alabama, that's kind of been the debate back and forth anyway, is, because we never fully shut down either. We kind of had to stay at home
Yeah.
but you could still go get your items that you needed and things like that. And this is why I sent it to you before I just threw it out there, because you have somebody always look at it, because yeah, you kind of brought some points I totally should have gone into more detail, which is I know here they're looking at doing the stages and doing
Yeah.
the small screw. But I definitely totally agree. Just wide open, take off again. No, any person with any common sense knows that
Yeah.
not only is it going to be a secondary spike, that's the worst case that we can do.
Well, you said anybody with common sense, and I'm gonna give our listeners hopefully a plug and say that you guys have some more common sense. You are listening to us, therefore there are a lot of people out there with no common sense. And I think that's a lot of what we're battling too.
And if you're a teacher, we understand that battle a whole lot more than everybody else. But now we have so many homeschool teachers, you understand what we're dealing with.
Yes, you're understanding the logic of trying to deal with common sense.
Yeah. So kind of like what you were saying with what's going on. Yeah. Because we're still having a slow spike. I think we've only had a couple of days with no new cases,
which is good.
Yeah, and I guess that's where I was talking. Like what I kind of mentioned, that like there's going to be a secondary spike. So even if it's a slow down, you can kind of see what's going on. And and then that's why I say, it's time to start looking at small, and that's why I say send you some small increments to allow those small businesses to stay afloat.
Yes, and I fully agree. When you're ready for it, that secondary spike is something that has been factored in. The reason why we did the flatten the curve and lower it so as we didn't have that initial bombardment on our healthcare system, so that
which is what my buddy said. That's exactly what he said.
Which is to handle that infrastructure. Whereas now it's not handled. I don't want to misuse it, but it's to a point where if there is a secondary spike, we're at a stage where it can handle that number that would be coming in without being bombarded. If you gradually open, not
Right. Yeah, we can't open back up and hit and his brother's a professional baseball player, so we're kind of touching on that, and so, but yeah, that's it. You're not going to see movie theaters, you're not going to see restaurants 100%, you're not going to see sporting events, concerts. No, we're not ready for that.
Yeah, we're not ready for schools to open up, or somebody was like schools. Because there's no way that you can social distance children in a school setting, always and stuff like that.
Heck, even here, Alabama, they're talking about reopening youth baseball and softball at the middle of May. And even on that, and they're talking about having coaches social distance the kids. And I looked at my wife last night. I said, how are you going to social distance in a dugout?
I was about to say the exact same thing. Any team sideline.
So
let's everybody automatically gets on base because you can't tag them out because,
And here's what I told my wife. I said, there's going to be that one parent that's going to be fussing about we shouldn't be doing this and there's going to be problems, but they're going to be the one that goes and sits right down the middle of everybody and wants to accept attention, but they don't want anything to happen to their kid.
Bingo.
I was like, and that's kind of what, you can't have it both ways. So
and I fully agree. And I've been on the bandwagon of people complaining about being at home, complaining about being bored, complaining about look, I've told my children since before the coronavirus that you're not bored. The only people only people that get bored are boring people. You're not boring people. You have plenty to do. You have an imagination. You have things to do.
Yep.
So we have found ways to keep busy, to quarantine. We still go. We still get out. We still go out. We just went on our family walk. Walk the dogs. Still get out.
Right.
Still exercise. Still play in the yard. Still do different things. So we're not truly on the lockdown that people think we are, where don't leave you have all these free, you're doing all the things that you would probably normally do kind of like on a summer vacation, except you can't go to the movies, you can't run to the grocery store every other day, which I do have to say that's what I do miss, because I hate the once a week grocery bill. Trying to go out because you're like us, kind of get for a couple days, go get what we need, that's kind of been like a pain in the butt. But has it been life ending? No, we make the best of it, and we're doing things, and you got to find a way to get better. Jokingly saying, whatever your side hustle is, education, creativity, trying to do something. If it's not, everybody's always been saying it's not a lack of time, it's a lack of self-discipline that I think.
There it is.
And that herd mentality that you were talking goes back into that self-discipline thing. people just want to have something to complain about. That herd mentality of following that, whatever the new complaint is, they're all going to hop on and complain about it.
Oh my gosh, yes.
You know,
I guess that's what made me just kind of sparked it, because like I said in the video, beginning of the week, everybody wanted to get out of the house. By the end of the week, when you could possibly get out of the house, now they don't. So,
yeah. So,
I was like,
and then I've seen a lot of also people like trying to blast the people who say, well, we shouldn't be going out. Like, you don't, like, that leads to a whole nother debate. Another thing that I was just talking to somebody about, you know, they were across the street, and I was like, look, part of the problem is I understand the small businesses need to run because that's a livelihood type thing, though. And
yep.
no matter how you want to think about this, we have a bigger issue then that I think we'll start to see a lot of. Oh, I don't think we'll see it. I would hope that we would see changes made, that small businesses need to be able to self-sustain for more than 4 weeks. You know, like, there's got to be someone, and I'm not the economy person. I'm not that type of person to know exactly what the plans are, what kind of government funding, help, assistance, what do small businesses need in these times of need and cases like that. But there's something fundamentally also wrong if just after 4 weeks, like, it's just, and I'm not talking about new startup businesses. I'm talking about, like, you know, small mom and pop shops. Something like this happens and they lose everything in their livelihood, and that's just kind of not right. There's what's wrong with our system that, you know, doing the right thing causes you to lose your livelihood or go out of business, you know?
And most of the ones that I've spoken with have been around for either 2 or 3 decades, or they're in their second generation. So these are established people that, you know, they have it. And from their perspective, they're looking at it, not only themselves, but they're the people that that work for them. Mm-hmm. And I guess that's another clarification that I get a lot of time. Is like
the employees that are working there. So
yes, because they depending on the size, and once again, this is where I used to teach. So depending on the size of the business, and the benefits and things like that, you know, they're looking at it from, I'm going to be fine, but I have to lay that person off or this person off
and whatnot. So
do I take this loan out from the government that is literally a loan that I then have to pay back unless I use it the way the government says? Because one of my guys did it, and he's like, I'm going to have the cleanest building around because that's all they're doing is they just come in and clean the lot every day. Instead of being able to do what they're supposed to, and they're electricians. So, and then I talked to another electrician this weekend, and he's like, man, our business is booming. So I'm not having to worry about anything. So so it's like you said. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects there.
Yeah, because this discussion also was had like early on, and I mentioned this one to my wife, and I said, look, it's the employees that it's always things from the ground up that run everything. And it's the employees that have to go into work that are working from paycheck to paycheck that, you know, end up, you know, it's not that they want to spread anything or do anything, but they're already living paycheck to paycheck, hour to hour. And when that person catches a cold or catches an illness or catches something, those people still go to work, not because they want to, but because they have to, you know, to continue to provide for family, to keep the power on at home or to do whatever. And unfortunately, that's why we also have to have that shutdown process, you know, because those people have to, you know, supply for their families or supply for themselves. But at the same time, you know, it's kind of like, what do we do? You know, it's a crazy thing. Not to get too much further into all that.
Let's roll into what this is a podcast about.
But it was also kind of fun just to talk about and like get a different perspective on it, and you know, let people hear something other than just like I said, Tyler and I's opinions on things. You know, we were both in the same. Tyler and both in the same state, kind of had the same opinion on things. Like I said, being in a different state, seeing it from a different perspective, you know, I do think makes a difference on how we look at this thing. I just hope that the powers that be, no matter where you are, use some sort of common sense and logic, and you know, do its best for everybody all around.
Use those 2 words again, common and sense, together.
Yeah. All right,
let's talk wrestling.
What Tyler dubbed as wrestling talk, and then there was going to be one other sports talk. So, Flo, let's see, they probably don't listen to us, although Tyler said they have our stuff bugged, and because every time we talk about something, they have it on the very next day or later on. But we're going to go retroactive. They just had, and I haven't watched that episode of FRL yet, they had Jordan Burroughs and Kyle Dake on there. And then there was kind of like the debates on because since, Dake made it known he was going to drop down to Jordan Burroughs' weight. Actually, we're in April now. When would have World Team Trials been, or not the Team Trials, or the
Olympic trial? It would have already done. I think it would have been the 1st of April, if I'm not
I was
mistaken.
going to say, it would have been here in April. So we would have seen Dake versus Burroughs. Possibly. Let's not to diminish the
74 kilos in America is ridiculous.
But just for argument's sake, and just to not because we could go through that whole thing, which Derringer just moved from Oklahoma City to Ann Arbor, went to Michigan. So
that's why Tyler's not on here. He's really just over there celebrating.
Yeah, he is. He is just celebrating. So we can hit him with that. The reason why Tyler's not here is he's celebrating. But and I think he's originally from Wisconsin anyway. But yeah, 74 kilos is off the chain. The potential Big Show lineup was going to be Burroughs versus Dake, and I think what happened was there was a lot of debates on not just who would win currently, but who was. I don't think you can say who was the better NCAA wrestler. Kyle Dake was a 4-timer. Burroughs was a 2-timer. Yeah. But who would have won had they met up, I think was the question. I was like,
golly, that's two totally different folk styles of wrestling.
I know. And that's what makes it, like I said, I haven't watched the thing to know how that argument and all that went out, but I just thought I was like, man, that's a good question. What do we think currently? What do we think, I think, not to mention the COVID virus again, but what do we think the impact of that has on their potential matchup? And what do you think would happen if they would have met up before? So 3 possible things. What would happen now? What's going to happen? And who do you think was better? Those are the 3 questions for those guys. And you can pick one, and I'll go with the other one, and then we can coin toss which one you want to take first.
If you go with which one's better, and it goes into anything, if you just count championships, then you've got to go Dake. NCAA's Burroughs is so explosive.
Do you take both their senior years, and if they've been at their same weight their senior years, wrestle in that same year?
Who did Dake have in the finals his senior year? Was that the Taylor year?
I think that was the Taylor year because that was his last one. Because Taylor was still another 2 years or 1 year after that? No, 1 year after that.
Yeah, Taylor won it. Yeah, Taylor won it the next year.
Taylor won it every other year.
And Burroughs, who did he have his senior year in the finals?
I don't remember who he had in the senior year in the finals. I remember Burroughs having that. Remember that epic scramble Burroughs had with Lean?
Yeah, that was. So so you could throw that in because Dake had a lot of that scramble ability and flexibility.
He was definitely, and still is to an extent, a counter wrestler.
And just and we've seen it even. Let's say this. And once again, we're talking folk style, but in freestyle, even though Dake is more of a counter wrestler, the explosiveness, Burroughs still is able to use it to his advantage. So you would almost think that it would be an advantage in his strength, his explosiveness in folk style as well.
Yeah.
The question would be if he's on top of Burroughs, how does that work in folk style?
That's what I was going to say.
There is no get back to you.
Escapes. Yeah.
Which is kind of his forte. That was right there. So, but you would think Burroughs would be able to explode out.
Yeah. You'd think. So it's a matter of in the freestyle in the past, it's been proven that, obviously, because Burroughs has won those matchups, the 2 out of 3 matchup, or, Dake's 1-1, but Burroughs is explosive to come out and hit that ankle lace. Remember that he came out and ankle laced him, and I was like, oh my God, the man's not playing anymore. That explosiveness, I think, on their feet is something else, and I think he would have had that. So if you figure just length of matches, it's kind of scary though, because you get 3 minutes on your feet for the first period, and then you're top bottom, if you choose top bottom for 4 minutes for the last, so 4 minutes to 3 minutes, has there been enough time or exposure, like to say that Dake could have ridden him out or,
Yeah. I would lean 60-40 Burrows their senior year. And once again, it's the slight edge. It's just a slight edge. And like I said, I know he's a 4-timer and Burrows is not, but
but as Burrows is one that his trajectory was just on that upward slope while he was, not to say that Kyle Dakes wasn't, because obviously he was, but he kind of got to the top and stayed at the top,
Oh, yeah.
Burrows had to make that ascent through his NCAA career. But yeah, I'd agree with you on the NCAAs. I think Burrows wins the takedown battle there. Being able to take somebody down, maybe have to ride him out for the last 30 seconds. I think he's a good enough scrambler to roll with him there. I think the kicker is, in this case, we're looking at back points. Can Dake catch a tilt in there somewhere, or if he was able to get up, can he stay on top of him? But like you said, I think there's enough explosiveness because his explosiveness was different than David Taylor's explosiveness. David Taylor was good, but he didn't have that explosive to, that's why Dake was able to ride and do things. I mean, he was fast, he was quick, but there's something different about the way Burrows moves when he wants to explode.
And the way it transitioned immediately from collegiate to international within just a few months.
Yeah.
So, like I said, that's why it would be a slight edge. It's one of those great history debates. We'll never know. So we see it in freestyle. So
yeah. All right. So if they would have met up this year, who are you putting money on going into this? Like, were you on that? Like, I was flip flopping. At first, I was like, I got to go Burrows until I see him lose to him, And then the performance that I saw Dake put on at Worlds, I was like, oh God, like, has he finally got to that level? And also, this is like, it's not a best of situation, and Burrows is finally starting to age, but every time we say that, he comes back and dominates, so he kind of like makes you eat your own words when you want to say it's that age factor thing. So, but that also was in the back of the mind though, I'm like,
Burrows is putting a lot into this. He knows this is his last go. It was almost like last year having Final X at Lincoln.
Yeah.
Where you just knew, you just knew he was not going to lose. Even though IMR got that one, it was like he's not losing. Yeah. So that was probably my only caveat there. In that I'm still on the Burrows wagon of he's still the man. Nobody's beat him. It's his weight class. He's comfortable at his weight class. He's not having to lose down any to get there, which that's another thing you'd have to think about with Taylor coming down. Dake coming down. That he's going to have to maintain that, which is a little bit extra on him, whereas Burrows, it's a normal thing.
Yeah, he's there.
So, but here's the other question, like, how are they going to work their way through it? I can't remember what was the decision made about who was anybody sitting out, who was working their way through. How was that being done? Because like we said, Dake was a world champ, but it's not in an Olympic weight.
Yeah, I think he had to go through. And then
Burrows would have been sitting there, wouldn't he?
What did Burrows place at Worlds this previous year? Was he? Was it the year? See, there were so many questions about Burrows because, like, where did he go to and not place at, and then, did he get bronze for the team?
He got bronze.
So he would be the medalist, and he would be sitting. Dake would be the non-medalist going through.
But they had made some decision, like with him and
Yeah.
was
There's
it him and
something also,
Taylor
yeah,
that they
there's
had
something the
done.
way they did the final X's and everything else. Like, and that whole process, if you don't keep up with it and remember it each time, kind of gets boggled in the mind.
Yeah. So
So,
that's another thing I would have taken into consideration because if
yeah,
Dake's having to go through, that helps Burrows, which has in the past.
as in the past,
I
yeah.
don't know. I'm still taking him. I mean, he's still the man. He still has only what, like 6, 8 losses internationally, something ridiculous.
Yeah,
No, I mean, not a Karelin-esque or something like that, but I mean,
still pretty,
and
pretty
most of those
impressive.
are to Americans.
Yeah.
So
I don't
I'm
know.
going Burrows. So
This year I was starting to go with the Dake, and then like it wouldn't take much to sway me back to Burrows, but then I'd be back to Dake, and I was thinking it was going to be Dake. So I guess the last time I officially made a decision, I kind of was like Dake, but now I'm also wondering. It's been postponed a year now,
yeah,
in essence. And the reason why I also was starting to bounce back to Burrows was because this weight descent, you know, wasn't like a short weight descent. He had a little bit of time, but he had time to get his body right. You got a whole nother year to prep your body the right way. So because it took him a little bit of time to get his body weight up. It took David Taylor a little bit of time to get their body weight up to
right.
compete at the heavier weight. Now that he's got a whole nother year to fine tune his body and that functional dynamics that he does with his weight training and everything, or functional patterns, I think it's called. Like
Yeah.
a whole nother year of that. And then yet a whole nother year for Burrows to get one more year older, and I think this is going to be his final run. Does that make a difference?
Yeah, and this kind of gets into what we talked about last week with why they don't wrestle in the same events, because that one extra match. Because, I mean, we got to think the last time they've wrestled each other was 2 years ago now, maybe?
2 or 3, yeah.
So they both have changed and adapt. And, yeah, I mean, yeah, you're right. I mean, he was a freaking animal at Worlds, which leads to the question. First of all, you never discount a world championship.
No.
You don't. But it was the world championship the year before an Olympic year where a lot of people take time off and they don't go into that.
And especially those off weights or the non-Olympic weights.
But it's still a world championship and he freaking plowed his way through it.
Yes.
So, and Burrows is out there at an Olympic weight with Shimizu, with the rest of the studs, battling it out, right there. So I'm still going to go with, like I said, I'm going to go Burrows because he hasn't been beaten yet. But once again, 74 from the U.S.
It's going to, and that's the other thing that right now I'm going to just go ahead and say Dake, just to have a different take on
it. Oh, yeah.
I think, another year, like I said, of getting down to that weight, it's another year of another thing. When do they get to start training again, too, with somebody? I think that's important to Burrows, getting those feels for things.
You got to also think that, college campuses are shut down.
Yes.
But I would guess that some of those places, like let's say Taylor has his own training facility that he has a key to.
Yes.
Bring somebody, you can have a partner or something like that.
I just saw Dake. His garage, granted, is much larger than my garage. I think it's more like the 3-car porch shed. He just put a full-size mat in his garage.
And that's what we went in. There was a couple of kids that wanted to get together this weekend that dad that was an electrician. He has a mat. So I was like, okay.
Yeah.
So, you take them, and if you got a spot, you do it. So those guys are finding a way. They're just not doing it on college campuses because the colleges are shut down.
Yeah.
So, and I'm sure Burrows has something. There's something somewhere.
Yeah. Because he made the comment, it was like, you can't become an Olympian riding a Peloton bike.
Yeah.
And with that, so that's what I was saying. He wants the feel of something. He needs that. So, all right, cool. Wasn't originally on the thing, but with the addition to having another year for it, it leads to the question for me anyway. it's another year for Jaden Cox to fill up into that weight class that much more. Jaden Cox versus Kyle Snyder. This year off, I think, benefits Jaden Cox because that gives him another year to grow into that weight class against Kyle Snyder.
And I really don't know how much he would have to grow into it, to be honest with you.
That's
he was
true.
already he's a large person.
He was but imagine if he wanted to, or if he felt like he needed to grow any. Like that's a whole nother year for him to do. I think it benefits him. Just for
it's
that.
a dynamic. I mean, this is one that when he made that announcement, or even before he made the announcement, our staff here, we were talking and we were all kind of saying, I love Snyder. Love Snyder. Loves what he's done. But Jaden Cox is an animal. Jaden Cox is just
Tyler and I did Captain America versus the Alien, and
Alien, Predator, Black Panther, whatever you want to say.
He is.
It's going to be explosiveness, but Snyder, almost within the last year, has shown he's kind of expected this with showing more explosiveness, with showing more things in his repertoire. He hasn't had the results at some other tournaments like you would expect, but he's also, if you look at it, it's almost like when you and I came through, like when Tiger Woods was destroying everybody, and he played this off tournament and he would suck it up. He would still finish like 32nd or whatever, or top 10, but he would shoot terrible and he's hitting these shots that he's going to have to hit at the major. Well, that's kind of like almost maybe what Snyder's doing. He's been wrestling these styles that he might have to have against Cox or Sedgelayev, and he's wrestling that way against everybody else, which doesn't necessarily match.
No, and you got to also think his move to the Nittany Lion Wrestling Club with being able to scramble with people like David Taylor in a room. Huh?
But it's still that explosiveness, man.
It is.
Burroughs, Cox, Jordan Oliver. I mean, those guys have that different level of explosiveness that you just can't unless you get your hands on them.
Yeah. And again, his move to the Nittany Lion Club, did he foresee, because Cox had been there, he's kind of part-time at the Ohio RTC, I mean, it's just, these Ohio RTC moves are getting to be more and more intriguing,
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt.
When you watch them and then you wait to see, like, you wonder why somebody moves, and then, like, when it comes to, wrestle off time or like the trials time, you're like, oh, now I'm starting to see why so and so moved, or they moved. This guy wrestles like this guy, or I'm really starting to enjoy that look, like being that little bit more of a wrestling nerd to look into who's where, who's not.
Oh yeah,
but it's almost kind of fun. It's that little bit of geeking out about stuff that not everybody gets.
Yeah, there's so much intrigue if you're into it for the Olympic trials, and then like you said, you add the extra year, and even like Tyler said last week at heavyweight with the Michigan heavyweight, now adding him to the mix with Stevenson and all those guys. I mean, it just opens up the door that I mean, we're going to have a solid team. Everybody knows we're going to have a solid team. We're finally back top 3 year in and year out, freestyle. So I know you and I both want the Greco programs to get so much better. Because
Tyler too, like we've talked about it. It's like, Tyler's like, I'm going to throw my hat in the ring. He's like, I can't do any worse. And not to take a knock on those guys because they would all chunk us on our heads, but there is some truth to it. Like, what is it going to take for our senior level guys? Because we do have some superstars in there with like Kamal Bay and Rao and some of those guys that Robbie Smith, Kuhn can go either style, like what's it going to take for us to have some of those guys like turn the corner? I mean, is Greco harder? I mean,
Yeah, I've got two, and you might agree with some of this dialogues with. One, we started handling it with putting Greco after the first year with Final X and exposing it. Mm-hmm. That was huge. Yes. Because that right there started getting more. Number two, and this is where it gets touchy. If you're not the number 1 or number 2 guy in freestyle, you should be thrown over and given a shot at Greco.
Yes.
You should, and USA Wrestling should be like, we don't care. You're going to go through, we'll do Final X, all that stuff. All right, you went, but guess what? We're going to have another one. And if you're number 3, 4, 5, whatever in freestyle, or you're not in Final X, we're going to have a little mini tournament over here in Greco, and we're going to get the best guys. And because, I mean, you grew up doing it in Oklahoma. We're starting to do it here at Alabama. I'm doing it with my son. You wrestle freestyle, you wrestle Greco, you do both.
Yes.
There's no choice.
You do both. Like,
Yes.
why not? And then,
So,
could you imagine the years that Kyle Dake lost to Burroughs if he'd gone and tried out for Greco, and then like, he could have Dake bombed everybody? Like, you know what I mean?
you go further back than that. Sammy Henson, the years that he was Greco and then transferred over to freestyle. If he'd have stayed, I mean, golly, there's so many awesome guys.
Yeah. So I think it's somehow finding a way to emphasize those guys to say, hey, you want a shot at a medal? A Greco medal is no less valuable than a freestyle medal.
And Coons kind of showed that. I mean, a lot of times they want to do both, but he's kind of shown that, and we start having more guys do it, they'll work it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of my take on it. I think Freestyle X done it, but I really truly believe, hey, if you're not wrestling Freestyle X, then they should have like a Greco tournament before
back from it. Like, really, what's holding you back from it? Because you know if you got the chance to bomb somebody in freestyle, you're going to.
Maybe you also, instead of having Freestyle Greco Nationals the same weekend, which I may be totally wrong here, USA Wrestling, I'm sorry, but, you know, you have the senior level Freestyle Greco, if they're on the same weekend, separate them. Yep. Have freestyle, and then if you don't place top 2 or whatever, you automatically are entered into Greco 2 weeks later. I don't know.
Yeah, a month later.
But now you start to filter guys in there.
Yeah. I mean, we got to find a way to get those names in there. You got to find a way to get them.
And like you said, you're bombing them on their head. Everybody wants to see people get bombed on their head.
That's the other thing. Like, people say Greco's boring, like, but yet all you want to see is people get bombed. Like,
and what is one of the first moves you teach a youth kid? An arm drag.
Yeah.
Greco, you're arm dragging. You're 2-on-1. I mean, it's what we want them to do as a
practice bridges and back arches.
Oh my gosh.
Our USA Wrestling logo. Suplex.
It's up here somewhere.
Suplex. It's. I mean, he's around the waist, back arching. It's a Greco.
It's a Greco. Yeah. So that's my take. That's what I think would help solve some problems. Take it for what it's worth. But yeah.
I'm with you. I think we're all with it. I don't know who's not with it, and I don't know why, but they need to come listen to us. So
there you go.
Hey, head on out of here. What'd you think of the Last Dance? I know you watched it, didn't you? Or
actually, yes. I did not watch it Sunday because that's movie time. But I sat down yesterday and
did you watch both episodes or just one?
I watched both. I watched.
I didn't realize there were 2 episodes that night. Like, I stayed up and I watched with Devin the first episode. I didn't realize they were playing the second episode right after it. But now that I know that, we can pull it and watch it. But
yeah, the second one focuses a little bit more on Scottie Pippen. What's going on? I mean, you know, we were going through. I'm a Bulls fan. Was a Bulls fan. Jordan. I mean, you can't have grown up in the '90s and not. It's kind of like right now with LeBron. I mean, being a Jordan fan. We'll leave that one later. But I mean, I respect him for what he did. For what he does. The same way with Jordan and the Bulls. I mean, you just knew. And that year, knowing it was, as that first one said, with Jackson, The Last Dance, knowing that was it was what made it all that much more special and frustrating because there was no reason. There was absolutely no reason for them to not keep going.
Yeah, no. I mean, it makes no sense. But I don't know. I watched it. I took one Snapchat. I was like, the only time you'll see me post on basketball, but it was The Last Dance. It was with Michael Jordan. It's an iconic figure of an iconic time period in sports. Arguably one of the best sports teams, period. You know, not just in basketball. I mean, but like I argue. They hold an argument for one of those best teams, you know.
The 96, the first of the second three-peat, I would, as a Bulls fan, I would say would be one of the best ones because it's the first 72-win season.
Yeah.
I know Golden State did it later. Okay, whatever.
There's a handful of teams that can be held in those arguments. But I think, you know, with the iconic figures that they had there, that they were able to keep there, that – you know, everything from, like, I was a big Rodman fan to, like, Rodman, like, the guy that was, like, he was, like, as good as he was, he had no ego on having to touch the ball, like, you know, and, like, it was just.
He'd have to score. He'd have to score.
No. Yeah, he didn't have to have the ball on that end. But, like, but, man, it was just, there's so much about it. I'm happy to see it on right now because
Yep.
I think there's so many kids today, my own including, that he was like, after watching the first time, he was like, okay, you might be right. Jordan might be the best. But
Yeah.
like they just don't understand how ball was played, how
Right.
it worked. And I think part of it is also just that work ethic that he had and how that mentality of like from that first episode on, he was like, I went and found the best dude in there and I didn't talk because I didn't have a voice. I had to do, and I think that's big. And
And
nowadays,
also the physicality is so much different from
yeah,
then to today. And
nowadays people talk too much and they don't actually have any actions. And he put in that work, and
well, and they talk about the hard fouls and the way the touching and all that. And yeah, I mean, I was kind of joking with as a staff or whatever, and I was like, we watch. It's going to stereotype here for a second. Basketball, baseball, and soccer players walk around. I was like, yeah, they walk around because they can't get hit in the face. Wrestlers and football players, we can get hit in the face every day in practice. So, so we kind of carry ourselves a little bit different. But yeah, I mean, even today, I mean, it's not what it was, but it's not that it's a bad thing. It's just a generational thing that
it is
what we
generational. It's just different, and
mm-hmm.
I think it's cool for people to see a different generation's approach to things too. Granted, I think we'd say I might speak for you, but I think a better approach to things. That hard work, grind.
Yeah. Yeah, it still works though. You're right, because it still works. It's still success.
And that's one of my favorite things that I like about Jordan, and I like about him, and I like about. I'm going to use The Rock, for example, or people that are successful. No matter how far ago in time it was or how current it is, it's still consistent. To have success, you have to be the hardest worker in the room.
Yep. And talent definitely helps out. Yeah, that was
yes, but if you're not taking care of, like, you can't control your talent level, but you can control the amount of work you're putting into something.
And I'd started before the Last Dance thing started coming up. I had taken my son and kind of found on Netflix or something like some of those Jordan documentaries and had him watch a couple of those. And he was that good? I was like, yeah. I think it was Bill Russell made a comment on one of them that said, Michael Jordan never threw his jersey out there. And that's kind of, I think in the first documentary, that's what they said. Maybe it was the second one. They talk about how he could have just laid it up, but every night he was like, there's somebody, this will be the only chance I'll ever get to see me. And he played hard every night, no matter what. And
if you think about it, that's pretty awesome, because how many times have people gone to a ball game in today's time, like a team shows up and you go to see that superstar.
Yep.
And he either didn't travel or he didn't play or he didn't feel 100%. So he said, no, that wasn't the case. He built his legacy. And that's why I 100% believe his legacy is what it is today, with people who don't even know him will still spend hundreds upon hundreds of dollars on variations of his shoes.
Oh, yeah.
That's how deep his legacy goes. This man's shoes, people will buy who have never seen him play or don't know anything about him. Like, they just know the name. They know the awe of it. But he built it that way from all those people from, worldwide.
He did. So, hey, all right, one more side note. I'm going to throw this at you last minute. We know what week it is. Who are we taking first round? What position are we taking first round? NFL draft, 49ers. What position are we taking? We got 2 picks in the first round. All right, we got 13 and 31. We're looking, might do some trades. Who are our Niners taking? What are we taking?
I haven't looked at the names well enough to know who we would take.
All right, give me a position. What position do you say we need to address?
To address? Dude, like, we've built defense for so long. I wouldn't mind seeing another defense player just because we've proven that building that defense works.
Yep.
But I still, for the longest time, we got Debo, and we've got some young guys. I almost think, and I do want another wide out. I do want another wide receiver. But at the same time, I almost think we still need a veteran wide receiver in there. That's why, Sanders was, I think, important. But I wouldn't mind seeing another wide receiver. Our running back core, has been deep. We were 3 deep.
Yeah.
Crazy as it sounds, I think offensively, I think picking up another tight end or somebody that can play kind of like Juszczyk just to back those guys up. Because when they were in and they were good, they were great, they're fabulous, especially when they're in together. But I think, to build that style of play that we have, having one more young guy in there behind Kittle and Juszczyk would be beneficial to somebody else to learn that system so that, because they are targets, because they're that good, if somebody gets dinged up, maybe,
Right.
Kittle doesn't have to play with the band on. He can take a game off and we still be okay and keep him fresh. I wouldn't mind seeing another guy like that. Or, defensively, we've been hitting that line. I think we could still use another corner. Sherman's only got so much longer. Take advantage of having the experienced guy out there, have him teach a young buck up really good. So a corner or a fullback or tight end.
I got you.
What do you think?
Well, before we traded and got the 13, we were looking down there at 31. I was like dead set, DB. We need a DB. God, we need a DB. I mean, that was like obvious. We need a DB, like you said, opposite of Sherman, or so Sherman can be backside. We can lock down.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And now that we have 13, this weekend or last week, I was listening to one of the draft experts, and I brought up a good point. Staley's probably coming back for one more year.
Oh, is he coming back? I thought he was out.
He's 50-50, 60-40. It kind of depends. He's getting closer. So,
gotcha. Yeah.
So because of that, at having that 13th pick, you go and get an offensive lineman.
Yeah,
you get an offensive lineman, and because that's the other place we built it. We built it on the line. That's where you win games.
Those lines, defense and offense. Yeah, we need those lines. So
I say 13 pick. We take a lineman, offensive lineman, and then 31. We're sitting down there. Either we keep it and take a DB or a receiver, like you said.
Yeah.
Preferably DB, or we take that, make a trade back, and because we have no second-round picks, take that 31 like we did last year, take one of those first-round picks, trade back, get a couple of picks later in the draft.
I like that 13 pick to get the offensive line because a lot of the top 10 picks will be the flash running backs, quarterbacks, wideouts, things like that, and that leaves a very good O lineman sitting right around that 10 mark.
Yeah, that's what they were saying as well. So, that didn't hit me.
Yeah, that's the perfect spot for it. Like you said, when you said once we traded out and got that, I didn't know that we got that spot, but having that, I mean, that's where that really good line guy is, and that's what we can use.
Hey, there we go. Our post draft. We can talk post draft next week too on this.
There you go. That'd be a really good one. We can talk about how bad Tyler's Lions are still, and then.
Oh, he's a Lions fan. Oh, that's why he's not on here. He may not be on next week either.
He may not be on next week. All right,
he's old school Lions Saints with the bag on his head.
Awesome. I'll make one. He'll be here. All right, man. I'll hug you later on.
We'll see.